Aloha, my name is Thea, and today I will be your agricultural ambassador. Today we're at the beautiful Kahuku Farms located on Oahu's North Shore. This is a family-owned farm spanning 140 acres. This farm grows commercial crops, produce stands, and a cafe for everyone to enjoy. Come and let's meet Uncle Judah as we explore the beautiful Kahuku Farms.
Aloha, Thea.
Aloha.
Welcome to Kahuku Farms. We're so excited to have you here today.
I'm excited to be here.
We have so much to show you and to talk about. And if we don't mind, let's take a little walk up the ramp and around back, and we can see our little farm cafe and talk about what agriculture is to us.
Awesome.
So back here, we've got lots of different things to see, and this is where we're usually serving lunch.
Ooh, that
So,
sounds good.
along with growing produce for all our local supermarkets, we're really excited that we've been able to open up this front 5 acres along the highway specifically for people like yourself, children and families to come to the farm and get connected back to nature.
That's awesome.
So, agriculture has the word culture in it, and across the world there's lots of different lifestyles and cultures. Now, the culture or the lifestyle where people produce food for other people is agriculture. So we're very excited that today we have this area surrounding the front highway that's open to the public. And the Farm Cafe is serving lunch, and we produce farm-to-table menu items, things that are really special to us, things like non-dairy whole fruit smoothies. We even do a farm pizza. We grow our own lettuce and make our own salad dressing. And these are just ways for the community that live around here to enjoy the flavors that we grow. But that's not all that we do. You see, in agriculture, there's a lot of people that depend on food to eat. And most people today, when they're hungry, they either go to restaurants or they go to supermarkets. And if you want to produce food that can be sold to the supermarket, you have to grow it on a very big, large scale of production because a lot of people need to eat a lot of food.
Yeah.
So today around the cafe, we have these really cool ways to grow food. And this is called a wooden raised bed. And we filled it with a lot of different natural products, and we've created a natural system. Now, when you want to grow healthy plants organically, the most important thing that you need is compost.
Oh, yes.
Compost is when we build a home for microorganisms, and these little microorganisms will multiply and they'll continue to grow, and they will break down all the organic material in the soil so the baby plants can use it. So these are seedlings that I planted yesterday, and they will grow to full size in about 6 to 8 weeks. We have Swiss chard, which looks like that. We have some daikon. We got a lot of different things growing in these organic raised beds, and this is a great simple system that allows us to be able to produce food without the added cost of commercial inputs. But the problem is, when you grow food organically or naturally, you gotta do only a small scale production that's very diverse. You need a lot of different things planted together to create balance. Because in nature, if you don't have balance, you end up with disease and sickness, and your plants don't grow so well. And so small scale productions with a lot of different things is what we're demonstrating out here in the front 5 acres. And we're excited to take a walk and show you what we have in our tropical fruit orchards, as well as our garden, as well as some specialty flavors, things that we serve on the menu that you can only get here. Things like our local Hawaiian acai bowl and our very own chocolate that we make from our local cacao orchard. And so we're excited to show people that there's a lot of different things that can grow in Hawaii, and there's a lot of different ways to produce food, and they're all very important.
Yes. Definitely. I have one question. How
Sure.
do you take care of all your products and flowers and food? Like, how is this all grown?
Well, there's a saying that says the best fertilizer is the farmer's shadow. And so it takes daily attention. Plants require a lot of care, but usually if you establish the right environment before you plant the plant, and you use the right type of plant material, the right varietals of plants, as long as you give them what they need, and it's pretty much the farmer's job just to ensure that things don't bother it. So if you see a lot of bugs that are coming around to attack the plant, you either have to cover it, or you need to find out different ways to manage those bugs so that the plant doesn't get stressed. So happy plants produce happy food. If the plant is tired, if it's stressed, it's not going to produce very much. Just like you. You're not going to play a very good soccer game if you didn't get a good night's rest, right? And if you didn't eat a good meal. And so all of these things that we need is translated into what plants need. And so a good farmer understands what kind of plants they're growing and what they like to stay happy. And this is one of the main things that plants need to stay happy. Now this is what we call finished compost. This is made from waste that we get from the cafe and the garden. So one of the most important things in a natural system, if you want to keep plants happy and healthy, is finished compost. And this is created by collecting waste from the garden and mixing it with wood chips, and it gets really hot. All the tiny little organisms get really active, and the temperature gets above 120 degrees. So the compost is so important, and if you properly build a pile by layering it dry and wet and dry and wet, you're gonna create a home for these little things to continually multiply and feed, and it gets really hot when they're active, and the heat actually sanitizes and kills the germs, the pathogenic microbes that make you sick. Anything over 120 degrees will die. And that means only the good ones are left. And these good ones are the things that allow the plants to use all of the minerals and the nutrients that are trapped in the soil. And so if you have a lot of compost, you have a lot of life in your soil, we call it living soil. So a certified organic production is based on 100% on the soil condition. And it's not dependent on external inputs that you can get from, commercial agricultural suppliers. But there's a lot of different ways to do this. One of the most important things to remember is that in the natural system, if you want to have healthy plants producing lots of healthy food, you need a lot of compost. It's impossible to do organic systems without healthy compost and healthy soil.
I can see this is a healthy soil because I see some living things.
Oh boy, you want to feel inside here? You can actually see it's still pretty warm. Feel right in there. It's still warm. Come feel up here. It's so warm, yeah? The other thing really important to remember is that when you build a home for microorganisms properly, it doesn't have any scent. Tell me what you think this smells like.
Nothing.
I don't think it has any scent at all. If anything, it smells a little sweet. The problem a lot of people do is when they try to do home composting is that they don't layer properly. You need 1 part of wet to 10 parts of dry. And we don't put ham sandwiches or spaghetti in this compost pile. It's completely vegetable or vegan. And the reason is oils and sugars attract pests. And so what we use is wood chips, or you can use shredded cardboard or newspaper or dried leaves. But you need to, anytime you add 1 pound of maybe old lettuce or old vegetables or scraps, you need to add 10 pounds of dry parts. And you need to layer it. And this is gonna give it enough air and enough dry parts so that you don't have that nasty, smelly, pest-attracting wet compost pile that some people have when they don't have enough dry part. So that warmness isn't from the sun. It's from the activity, from all those little living things. And you see how I have a canvas over here? That is because, just like you and me, microorganisms need food, they need water, they need air, they also need shelter. Just like us, we don't want to sleep outside in the rain, right? So anytime you come to the Kahuku farms, these gravel paths are open to explore. So if you guys have something to eat and you want to stretch your legs afterwards, a lot of times people forget that this is a place you can walk around and stretch your legs.
Wow.
This is some of our dryland variety of taro that we're going to be harvesting for the root. Look how tall it is.
Wow, it's really tall.
This is grown with absolutely no chemical fertilizer. This is all compost and fish bone meal. This is what I wanted to show you guys. This is something we're really excited to have. These trees that I'm touching right now have been planted and put in the ground about 10, almost 11 years ago.
Wow.
And they took 7 years to produce their first fruit. Now, you see that up there?
Yeah.
That is Kahuku Farm's very own Hawaiian acai. And you can start to see the green seeds are turning purple.
Yes.
So once those the purple color is visible, it's time to harvest.
Yes.
Now once we harvest it, it's our job to aggravate it and strip off all the outside pulp and separate it from the inside pit. And that is the pulp that we use and we serve on our menu. Now this is our Hawaiian acai.
Wow.
And it's actually really small. And if you look, it's not a berry like a blueberry like you'd expect. It only has a thin layer of pulp around it. Now it's our job to process and remove all this pulp off of the pit so we can serve it. We are so excited that here at Kahuku Farms, after a long period of time, we have been able to harvest. It took almost 7 years for us to get our first harvest after planting the seed. And today, after we harvest, within 24 hours, we process the seed and we freeze it and we take off all the pulp. Now the pulp is only around the pit, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of labor to extract this off of the pit and actually use it in our recipe. So once again, Kahuku Farms is the only place that grows, processes, and serves Hawaiian acai all in the same place. Okay, so this is where we throw any kind of waste that comes from nature back into the wood chips, and that's where we'll flip it. And if you have some waste you'd like to throw it in, that'll help add to the compost.
I actually have a banana peel and some clementine.
Perfect. See if you can get it all the way over there. If not, all right, perfect. You got it. So here you can see what happens to the avocado trees if they're not protected from the wind. They die. And so these trees didn't do so well because of the poor wind protection. We got a lot of strong wind here. We've got sugarcane and dragon fruit. And you can see dragon fruit's in season.
Yeah.
I actually have a flower. You can see all fruit starts off first as a flower. And dragon fruit flowers only appear once a year. And as you see, anytime you walk around the garden out here, there are signs posted. So you can share a little bit of what you're looking at with your friends if you're walking around. Mango is just another thing that you get only once a year. They call it an annual flavor. It means under the right conditions, the tree will produce flowers just once a year. And that means if you're a mango farmer and you have to sell your mangoes, you only get a chance to make money once a year.
Yeah.
And that can be kind of tough, especially if everyone else that's growing mangoes is selling mangoes at the same time.
Yeah.
What happens when the market has too many of one thing? The price goes down. So even though there's a lot of mangoes and you only get it once a year, the farmer doesn't get a very good price for it if he's harvesting it the same time everyone else is.
How long is mango season?
Well, you know, that's a great question, and that actually can vary depending on the type of variety of mango you're asking about. If the conditions are just right, trees will flower in the early spring, and then the fruit will mature, and you'll be harvesting for about 2 months. Once every 1 or 2 weeks, depending on how the plant is blooming. And like I said, the type of variety can vary. But overall, summertime is the best time to harvest mango. And that's when everybody's picking mango. And if you're lucky as a consumer, you'll get pretty low prices when there's a lot of mangoes coming in at one time. Good for the consumer, but not so good for the grower, because growers only get a chance to produce mangoes and harvest once a year, and that's the only time they generate any income to cover the cost of producing and all the labor that goes into managing the crop. And so growing mangoes is a tough business if that's all you do. And if you want to be successful as a farmer, usually you got to grow more than just mango. I always like to mention that most fruit starts off as a flower. So if you look really closely here, you'll see a tiny little purple flower. This is the beginning of a star fruit.
Wow.
And if you know, star fruit is something that grows very well here in Hawaii. And if you look under here, I got one right here. It's not really that green, yellow yet, but it'll still be good.
Yeah.
You have 2 now.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people eat chocolate, but they never understand where it comes from, because chocolate is actually made from a fruit. If you look really closely, it starts off as a flower, and this tree actually produces flowers right off the side of the trunk, not like the star fruit, which is on the end of the branch, yeah? So it's a very special plant. Flowers are then pollinated by a tiny insect called a midge. And the midge creates, and once the pollination happens, you see how that that flower is turning into a tiny fruit?
Yeah.
Now, it takes about 6 months until the color changes. And look over here. We got one from last season right here.
Wow.
Kind of small.
So what is the process of turning this fruit into chocolate?
Great question. As you can see, the fresh fruit tastes delicious. But if you want to make chocolate, first thing you have to do is take out these seeds. You have to crack the pod, and you need to extract. You see all these strings? You don't want the strings. You got to take off all the seed and leave the strings and collect the seed into a big box to begin fermentation. Fermentation is when you want to kind of like compost it, where it gets hot and all the microorganisms will break down the sugars. And then it takes about a week, a little longer sometimes, depending on the size of your box. Once you've done the fermentation process, you then need to dry the seed. This drying can take a long time, depending on where you're drying it and in your way that you're drying it. After it's been dried, then it goes to the factory. where those seeds that have been fermented and dried are then roasted. After roasting the seeds, you gotta crack them and you gotta take off the shells, and what you're left with is what we call the cocoa nib. And this cocoa nib is great in lots of different recipes, but if you want to make it into chocolate, it needs to be ground down with granite stones for a long time before it can then be tempered. And tempering is the final step. Just like when you temper steel, you need to make it hot, you need to make it cool, you need to make it hot, you need to make it cool. You need to do this multiple times so that when you pour the chocolate oil, or the liqueur they call it, into a mold, it'll set and it'll stay shiny. And so there's a lot of steps that go into turning this fruit into the candy that we recognize. But the cool thing is that here at Kahuku Farms, we sell chocolate that is made with only the fruit that we grow, and it's actually good for you. Because dark chocolate is filled with antioxidants and healthy oils, and our chocolate actually tastes very unique and it's delicious. All right, guys, so basically, hydroponics is a system that uses water instead of soil to grow plants. And today there are many different forms of hydroponic systems out there.
So how does these plants get the nutrients from the water and not from the soil?
Excellent question. This is called static hydroponics, and it's just one form of many different types of systems. And the way the plants get nutrients is from the nutrients we put into the water. It's actually water-soluble, conventional lettuce formula. And so the bodies of our bodies and the plants all use chemistry to react to get the things that they need from the sun. And so basically, lettuce is a fast-growing plant. It only takes about 6 to 8 weeks from when you drop the seed in soil and then you harvest the whole head. So I wanted to show you that these are seeds that we planted about 5 days ago. Yeah, we just dropped these seeds in the soil, and if you look really closely, they're so small, yeah? Mm-hmm. So after 2 weeks, they're a lot bigger. You can see they're already starting to get more than 2 leaves. And over here, we can see that after about 3 weeks, they're ready to go into our static hydroponic system. So these lettuce plant seeds have been growing in the seed tray for about 3 weeks now.
Wow.
So this is the age when we'll take them out of the soil seed tray and we're going to transfer them into those plastic net pots. Let's take a walk over here and see a little closer. Now I'm going to lift this up. This table is very interesting. Basically, underneath this is water with nutrients. And this little white foam is actually insulation foam that we use to allow the lettuce plants to breathe. Food, water, air, and soil is what lettuce needs. And if you look closely, we've got this black plastic net pot that we drop the seedling into, and this keeps the soil together, and it also fits right into this hole that we drilled so that it'll float on the top of the water, and that allows the roots to breathe. Wow. It also allows the roots to reach down like straws and soak up all that wonderful nutritional value they get from the lettuce formula. And so after about 3 weeks in this table, you'll start to see big heads of lettuce, yeah? Wow. They get really fast, grow really quickly, and usually after the 3rd week of being in this table, we'll harvest the whole head, we'll wash it, and it goes right on the plate covered with our lilikoi balsamic salad dressing.
Wow, that sounds good.
Now once we harvest, you can see over here, I just harvested this yesterday. We still need to go ahead and sanitize this table and then refill it and then replant. So it's a great way to work off the ground without having to bend down. And lettuce, because it's such a fast-growing plant, if you have enough tables, you can plant in the scale that you want to harvest. So a lot of people forget that if you want to eat food all the time, you need to plant it all the time in the way that the plant grows. So lettuce grows in 6 weeks. Papayas can take a year before they flower. Different plants, acai takes 7 years. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're trying to produce food for continuous consumption. Tia, it's been a pleasure having you at Kahuku Farms today. I hope you enjoyed it. It's such a, I hope you can come back. And
yes, I'll make sure to bring some of my classmates when I come here. Thank you for Uncle Jonah for taking us on a tour around Kahuku Farms. Make sure you follow them on Instagram. They have an amazing Instagram site. And this is Thea, your agricultural ambassador, and ahui ho!
Ahui ho!